Greeting class and welcome to week 3. As you know, this week, because of Election Day, we will not be having our normal WebEx. I wanted to provide this very short 7 to 10 minute video overview because sometimes it helps fill in the voids and connect some of those dots. At the same time, I know you're very capable of reading the content. Hopefully there's enough directive information here to make this week a very simple week. And we'll get together week 4, and on Tuesday, week 4, we will be talking in depth about your week 3 summaries or week 3 assignments. First thing I want to bring to your attention, as we always do, the summary for the week. Of course, again, in highlight, we will not have our Tuesday Election Day WebEx. If there is some content you'd like to talk a little bit more about, we can do that on email or possibly have an individual WebEx session if that works for you. Reading this week, 2 chapters in the Nolan textbook and the Glickman chapter 7 through 12. And as I mentioned before, the Glickman text has lots of quality information to provide lots of very, very specific information on your observations. And again, reading every single page, that's a long read. At the same time, this is a wonderful, wonderful resource to provide lots of information. In just a moment, I will go through several of the web-based resources, which are very, very short to the point. That is the point of them, to have different resources to fill some of the voids of understanding, and also provide some a lot of different voices within the context of this class, outside of your textbook and outside of me, and of course outside of your school district. One of the things that you'll see is will be the assignment that will be due this week is the case study reflection, where you're stepping into your school and finding out a little bit more about the depth of your school. That will be due this coming Sunday. The next item I want to bring to your attention is the course assignment summary, which every week, this is a duplication, but I do put that just to make sure that you are very, very clear of where those assignments are. Each week we'll go through this. Our next larger assignment after the end of this week on Sunday will be your assignment week 5, 6, and 7. Please make sure that you take time to look at that, and so we are ahead of the curve and we don't get into crisis mode as we get into weeks 5, 6, and 7, because it does get to be a bit of a challenge that way. This week's reading, as you start to look at it, Standards and Procedures for Evidence-Based Teacher Evaluation. I really want to emphasize the fact of evidence-based teacher evaluation, not just what you think. It's just like writing a research report. What are you basing that evidence on? There is many concepts and processes to use. Last week we talked a little bit about directive behavior. Sometimes we see something in a teacher that needs to be changed, and maybe that teacher doesn't see it, doesn't understand it, or doesn't see certainly doesn't see the impact on students. Sometimes we need to direct that behavior. We also talked about the non-directive, where we observe and we listen and we pull information from the individuals. And I strongly recommend the non-directive model, because of course you know yourself as a professional. If you know you need to improve on something, I'm sure you'd much rather tell somebody, these are the 5 things that I'm working on because I know I need to get better. And the other one is looking a little bit more as the observational skills. I chose to add several documents, and these are short focused documents, and that's the purpose of it. Gathering evidence, evaluating teacher is a process, not a single moment. Gathering evidence for teachers. There is a document that talks a little bit about what does evidence really mean. Right here it gives you several bullets to look at to really think about what is that evidence that we're talking about. As we go back, evaluating teacher process is not a single moment. And if I can get to the right place, I'm sorry about that. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back and click on "It's not a single moment." Here we go. Evaluating teaching is a process and not a single moment. It's very, very, very important as we're talking with our teachers to make sure they understand that this isn't about this single observation, and hopefully you are going to have more than 3 observations. You'll have walkthroughs and you'll have different ways to engage in that data collection. But it's bigger than a single moment, and I think it's very, very important as we look at this document from the University of Washington. Again, short document that really helps the observer understand that we can't make it about moments. It has to be about the process. Go back a little bit further, best practice in teachers evaluation. This is a short, 18 pages, evaluation of teaching best practices, and it's a research document. One of the things that's important as you look at what is it I really want to do, what are some of those resources that are going to be critical to develop. And I think as you look at this document, you'll see some best practices and research into it. And again, it isn't, well, my district does that or I feel that, but what does the research say about best practices? And this document from the University of Wyoming, I think, does a wonderful job helping you understand the directions that you need to go and some things that you need to have in your toolbox. Principles of good practice, teachers' supervision. Let me get back. Here we go. This is from the National Association of Independent Schools. Again, looking at public schools, private schools, independent schools, charter schools, a lot of different ways to look at this problem. This document from this page talks a little bit about the principles of good practice from a teacher's perspective and also from a supervisor of teachers' perspective. And finally, this is a document that you will probably find very helpful, and is probably a document very similar to this is available in your school district. Very often I like to share the district from the school district that I was previously at, but I think this one does a very, very, very good job. It's from Burlington, Vermont. As you look at the differentiated teacher supervision evaluation system, goal setting, intensive supervision, ongoing supervision, colleague consultation, focused assistance. It goes through a lot of different things. What will happen in year 1, year 2 through 5, year 6, the cycle of intensive supervision, competencies. And as we go further and further, it explains more and more. It gives a timeline, which you probably will be very, very similar. District 196, which I was a part of, was very similar to this process. And most supervision evaluation processes you'll find are very similar. Goal setting. How do you goal set, and how will you set goals in your school, in your district, as you take over as the leader? It also gets into a little bit more about the rubrics about what a person should know. And again, it's based on the science of supervision and a lot of other information. I just wanted to have that document. How does that compare to the documents that you use in your school? If you look across the metro area and Minneapolis, St. Paul, you'll find a lot of documents that are very similar to that one. And finally, as you look at the assignment that is due at the end of this week, it's very clearly a case study reflection. You're going to visit with your immediate administrative supervisor or the person that you have easy access to that is most deeply engaged in the supervision process. Some of the questions you should be asked but not included. There are 6 questions or ballpark figures that you want to use, and you're going to write a 3-page APA paper. That 3-page paper, the 3 pages of content, it will have a cover page and it will also have a reference page. 3 pages of content. Can that be 2 pages or can that be 4 pages? Again, 3 approximate pages. I want to make sure it doesn't get to be a dissertation, but I also want to make sure that it has critical, thoughtful content. So as we look at this week, as we normally do, you will have a discussion board assignment. That discussion board assignment will have, of course, Sunday's forward thinking, which I think is very, very important as we look at providing what have I learned, what do I understand, and what do you have to share. There will also be a week 3 discussion item. Again, going back to week 3. Assignment and content. Want to make sure that you use each week as you go back. You should see a blue link. That blue link will give you everything that you need to know. And of course, if you have questions, please let me know. Next week, we'll get together on our Tuesday evening. We will be talking about our case study reflection. And in the meantime, I hope you have a great week. Make sure you get out and vote. And if you have any questions, please email me, and I'd be happy to respond on email, phone calls, or we can have a WebEx session. Again, have a great week. Let me know if you have questions. Good night.